everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Center here at Pro Tour Magic 2015 here in Portland, Oregon. I am Brian David Marshall. I am joined by Conley Woods. Conley, the format standard.
It is.
Everyone's telling me, that we're going to be looking at a lot of the same deck lists, and even you.
We are.
Even you resorted to another stock list. I can't believe we're doing this deck tech here.
I mean, sometimes you just have to play a stock deck and see what happens.
I mean, let's take a look at this thing. I mean, Thoughtseize, Abrupt Decay, Hero's Downfall. Yeah, Silence the Believers. I'll give you Silence the Believers.
I mean, I think Silence the Believers is much better than people give it credit for whatever it's worth.
Not seeing a lot in the controller, but I mean, come on, Conley, what is this? Let's look at the next set of cards. I mean, this is.
It's removal. What do you want from removal?
Lifebane Zombie and Grey Merchant of Asphodel. You're better than this, man.
I'm sorry. I apologize.
You're better than this. I can't believe you're playing this.
I need to do well at this Pro Tour, so I had to resort to playing good cards in my deck.
I mean, 2 Grey Merchants, but oh, wait a minute.
A little more aggressive than you thought. A little more aggressive than you thought.
This is something like maybe a little Jundy here. I don't know. Slitherhead, Lot Left Troll.
A lot of difficult to deal with creatures.
Spiteful Return, Dreg Mangler. I've heard people saying that this is a good card right now.
It is. And I may have been playing Jared's in former decks.
Yeah.
So I've become a fan of that guy.
Okay. All right. Well, let's take a look. Oh, we did go deep.
We did. We did.
Necromancer Stockpile. Talk to me about this card and what makes you want to play a stock list here.
So basically, this card got spoiled in M15, and if you read the card, you immediately have to go, well, what can I do with this? Like, it's an intriguing card, to say the least. It clearly has a very powerful effect. However, it does require a lot of very specific things to go right. So as soon as you read this card, the first thing you have to do is just go look at all the zombies in standard, right?
Right.
So you do that, and you find out that while there's not a lot of zombies, the ones that do exist are pretty good, like Lifebane Zombie and Grey Merchant. All those guys happen to be zombies. So once you have that going for you, this card becomes a lot more appealing. You try it out, and it turns out that the card itself is just absurdly powerful against a lot of archetypes like Esper, Blue-White, Mono-Black. They just have a very difficult time dealing with the 2-mana enchantment.
What makes it so powerful? So I get this in play, I untap. What is that sequence like against maybe a control deck?
So you just basically start pumping out 2/2s. They come into play tapped, so they're not good at blocking, but they are going to be good on offense. And because you can do it at instant speed, you can do it at your opponent's turn. So they don't really know how many creatures you're going to have. They just know they're going to have some amount of them. In addition to that, you're drawing a card off every single creature, so you're not losing any card advantage. So this ensures that you hit your land drops, which is very important, and it ensures that you hit your key spells in a matchup. Things like Grey Merchant when they're at low lives, things like Jared when you have a full graveyard, things like that.
Sure. Your Silence the Believers becomes easier to find?
Exactly. You find it in the late game, and you're kicking it and killing 2 or 3 things off of it, as opposed to a lot of decks where it's like, is it my top 15 cards? If not, I won't play that card this game. Right. So the deck gets to play a very grindy, kind of 2/2 beatdown strategy with Stockpile, but all the other cards in the deck are extremely aggressive, so if you don't draw your stockpiles, you just happen to have this very aggressive green-black strategy.
And wait a minute, so let's go back and look at that previous slide. Zombie Plant.
Zombie Plant, yeah.
Zombie Troll.
It is.
Zombie, just straight up Zombie. Plant Zombie.
And then the Zombie Elf, of course.
And the Zombie Elf.
Of
Makes
course.
total sense. Talk to me a little bit more about these cards now that we have them in the context of
Sure.
Necromancer Stockpile.
So Slitherhead is probably the worst of the bunch when you just look at it by itself. It has never really seen constructed play. I've played Dredge a million times and never played the card. It is not really good enough, but all of a sudden, once you have Lotless Troll, which is another 2-mana engine that allows you to kind of replicate Stockpile if you don't have a Stockpile, and Stockpile, Slitherhead just goes off the charts, because not only is it a zombie that is fulfilling your requirement of discarding a creature, but you're going to get something out of the graveyard for it. Your Lotless Troll being a 4-power guy instead of a 3-power guy is big, and then your 2/2 zombie becoming a 3/3, or your Mutavault becoming a 3/3 and being able to attack past opposing Mutavaults, and it'll stick around since it's a +1/+1 counter.
Right, that's important. People might not always know that. So if you put a counter on a land that becomes a creature, those counters will stay on the land even when it's not a creature.
Exactly. So you get to start winning Mutavault Wars in the late game, little things like that. You don't want to cast him too often unless you're like playing around a Devour Flesh or something like that. But in terms of the synergy he provides with the deck, it's really high.
Yeah, and so Lotless Troll kind of weirdly redundant with Necromancer Stockpile in the deck.
Yes, you play a very different game when you draw your Lotless Trolls.
Right.
He's much faster, much more aggressive, much more answer me in 2 turns or you're dead, whereas Stockpile is like, I have inevitability, because Stockpile, even if they answer the Stockpile, you've probably drawn a second Stockpile, which doesn't really do anything with the first one out, but as soon as they answer, it's like, here's another Stockpile. Lotless Troll's a lot different. It's, I want to kill you on turn 4, turn 5 if I can, but he still works with the synergies of the deck, discarding creatures, and he's a zombie himself, so if you draw him in the late game when you don't have any other creatures in your hand, you discard him and get your 2/2 and you're happy with it.
Spiteful Returned.
Probably the worst zombie in the deck, but I still like him. He gives you a little bit of reach, and he's good on a life-bane zombie. If you curve out, turn 3 life-bane zombie, turn 4 spiteful return.
Dreg Mangler.
He's
again,
very,
people
very
were
strong.
talking about this card coming into the tournament. What makes Dreg Mangler so interesting?
It's just all about haste. There's not very many creatures that have haste. He attacks past Mutavault if they leave that back as a blocker. You often see people cast a Supreme Verdict or a sweeper effect of some type, and then they leave themselves vulnerable for a turn. And if you have a Stockpile activation, that's a free 2/2, and then you untap and play a 3/3, that's 5 damage out of nowhere. Maybe you have a Mutavault for 7 damage. So it really punishes you if you ever tap out to like clear the board.
Right. And talk to me about Jared. Is this like your big finisher?
He is in really long games just because you can start throwing things, but just being able to rebuy him out of the graveyard by sacrificing 2 lands, you effectively get to turn lands into a zombie, and then that zombie becomes a 2/2 zombie and another card. Right. So it lets you exchange your resources in the late game as opposed to just playing off the top, which is pretty nice.
So let's take a look at Necromancer Stockpile again.
Sure.
And just while we're here, did you give any thought to being Jundi with this? And something like Timuret seems like it has a lot of interactions with this.
Yeah, Timuret is very good in terms of
the Murder King, in case you
Timuret the Murder King, the way he interacts basically is it's 4 mana to draw a card with Stockpile, because you create a 2/2 zombie and draw a card, and then you can sacrifice that zombie for a colorless and a black to return Timuret to your hand. I actually do play him in my sideboard against control strategies. I just found him to be a little too slow and clunky against all the like aggressive mono blue type stuff. So I do think he's valuable. I do think he's a route you can go. He's really the only reason to truly be Jund unless you're going into other removal and things of that nature, though.
Okay, but you don't need the red to
exactly.
have him
I don't even have red in my deck.
Right.
So.
Okay, so let's take a look at your mana base. Let's see. Overgrown Tomb and Temple of Malady have been around for a little while. The new M15 card for Standard right now is Llanowar Waste.
Yep.
How big is getting another enemy colors land in there?
Always good. Urborg is another big help, which we'll talk about in a minute. But basically, it lets you play Mutavault. The deck doesn't necessarily need Mutavault. It has some synergies with it, does some cute things with it. But Mutavault's basically just a little bit of reach. And by having another dual land, you have good mana. Most of your creatures are two pips. You have a Lot Troll that you can't have a colorless mana for.
Right.
Dreg Mangler you only can have 1 colorless mana for. Lifebane Zombie you can only have 1 colorless mana for. So this makes sure that you're not stumbling over forests and things of that nature.
Sure. Okay, so let's take a look. And then we see, the couple forests and swamps.
Yep.
Just because
Well, the forests are actually very important. So Urborg turns all your lands into swamps.
Sure.
And the way Jared works is you have to sacrifice a forest and a swamp to return
So you
it.
absolutely need a forest.
So you basically want to always use your Overgrown Tombs and your forest as the forest, and then you want to play an Urborg and use any other land basically as your swamp. So you want to sacrifice Mutavaults are going to die. You want to sacrifice Llanowar Waste. Obviously, basic swamp's fine, but you use those as your swamps, and you use your 7 forests to make sure that you actually can return Jared.
How do you run into issues with having 2 Urborgs at all?
You can if you're foolish. I may have misplayed against Neil Reeves a little bit, but that's fine. But for the most part, you're single enough cards that the second one doesn't matter much, and because of the Jared interaction, you at least have something to do with the land.
Right, so you can sack Urborg in a forest, return Jared.
And being able to play 2 or 3 Mutavaults to the board and still activate Stockpile a bunch is so important that I would not cut this.
Okay.
So.
Awesome. So you're liking this deck? You feel good about it?
Yeah, I feel it's a little bit of a risk. It has some very good matchups and a couple of matchups that I would not be happy with, but I need to top 16 this pro tour for my goal, so I'm kind of taking a little bit of a risk and hoping I get some favorable matchups. I like the limited format a lot. I was able to 3-0 the draft, so I'm just hoping to kind of maneuver my way through the field, find some favorable matchups, squeak out a couple close ones, and see if I can find a top 8.
Okay. Well, I'm going to let you get back to playing another stock list in the Standard format. For Conley Woods, this is Brian David Marshall from the Tournament Center.